Danielle, thanks for being with us. Can you tell us a bit about what the Stats Can report has to say?
Yes, the Statistics Canada, along with the National Indigenous Fire Safety Council, came out with a report that talked about it. And that report came out in March 2021 about how overall First Nations, overall Indigenous communities are 5 times more likely to die in a fire. That number doubles when we talk about First Nations communities, where people on reserve are 10 times more likely to die in a fire. And in the north, the Inuit are 17 times more likely.
Feels like almost every winter we see tragic headlines where a fire takes the lives of multiple people in a home. What's to blame for that?
Yeah, you're right, Dennis. It happens all too often. A coroner's report that looked at data from 2008 to 2017 gave us a little bit of insight into why there are so many deaths specifically on First Nations reserve communities. So when we're talking about the North and we're talking about First Nations reserves, there's often living conditions that contribute to risk of fire death. Some of those might be crowded living conditions or living in a place that's in need of major repairs, say to plumbing, electrical, perhaps your HVAC system. The Statistics Canada stats that came out this year show that 16% of First Nations people are living in homes that are in needs of repair. That number is also high when we look at the North. So you're seeing neglect on First Nations homes contributing to fire deaths. You're also seeing a lack of smoke detectors, which can contribute to fire death as well.
One Ontario report found it was in part due to jurisdictional neglect. Can you tell us a bit about what that means?
Yeah, so jurisdictional neglect, when we talk about that as a term, we're talking about a dispute between the federal government and the provincial government as to who's responsible for providing services. So you see this interjurisdictional neglect or battles when we talk about wastewater treatment, when we talk about clean drinking water, and also when we talk about building codes. So building codes are they're published by the federal government, but they're adopted at the provincial level. And unless a band or council adopts a building code via a bylaw, there isn't a mechanism to enforce them on First Nations reserves. And even if they do adopt it in a bylaw, of course, you have to have the capacity to be able to enforce these bylaws, which means inspections, a permitting process, something that not all First Nations have the capacity to do.
Danielle, is there anything that can be done in the short term to address this?
The quickest and easiest thing that people can do is to have a smoke detector in their house. If you have one, it's a good time to test it, make sure the batteries are up to date. This has shown to reduce deaths by 50%. So it's a massive treatment for this kind of issue. And if you are a chief or you're on council and you're looking to have a fire safety awareness event, it's also really important, they told me at the Indigenous Fire Safety Council, to make sure that you're installing the alarms in people's homes rather than gifting. Life is busy. We all are off doing our own thing. You get a fire or a smoke alarm as a gift, and you may just put it on your kitchen table. So installation is a really important part of making sure that your house is safe.
Good tips, Danielle. We'll hope for a safe winter here. Thanks for talking to us about this.
Thank you, Dennis.